guys, I am Pixel Dan, and today we are going to be taking a look at the Masterverse Skeletor as he appears in the Netflix He-Man and the Masters of the Universe animated series. This is the CG series that is on there right now on Netflix. Fun series, and of course it's got its own toy line, which is a very kid-focused toy line, but it's kind of cool seeing some of those designs brought to life in the collector Masterverse style. I gotta say, this dude is massive, and the way he's crammed in the packaging is kind of hilarious. I mean, he almost looks like he's just stuffed in there and he doesn't fit. So I'm hoping when I open him up and kind of articulate him around, I can make him look a little bit better, but right now this just looks really goofy. I will say I love this Skeletor in the series. He's really good. If you haven't given it a chance yet, I promise you'll like the Skeletor. The Skeletor is great. He's my favorite part of the show, hands down. The side of the packaging has gorgeous artwork, and one of the things that I love is that the colors there, that's what the cartoon looks like. All these very colorful colors, which I love. Colorful colors. That's right. Yeah, that's how I describe things, I guess. Then the back of the box has got awesome artwork of this particular version of Skeletor, along with our cross-sell down at the bottom. That's right. The Dark Master of Havoc! I love it so much. Let's get this guy opened up and let's see how this figure is. All right, we got our CGI Skeletor outside of the packaging. If I bring in the tape measure, you can see he stands at about 7 inches tall there. So he does feel a little bit on the shorter side compared to the other Skeletor figures in this line, but he does stand a little bit taller than the He-Man. And I think that that's okay. I think that actually works out pretty good. He's about 5 inches across, a little shy of 5 inches across, because that upper body is so bulky here. And if you already watched my He-Man video, I already got into this and that, but it's worth mentioning again, like, this is styled after the animation, and that's unique for Masterverse because a lot of times the Masterverse figures do tend to reuse the same bodies for a lot of the figures, much like many Masters of the Universe toy lines have in the past. But this is really all new all the way through and through because they're trying to capture those wacky proportions from this animated series. And, you know, that whole style is giant upper bodies, tiny legs, small heads, and I know not everybody loves that, so I guess it's going to really be up to the individual if you think that this looks good in the Masterverse line. Personally, I do like getting some of these different animated looks done proper in action figure form, and it would be cool to see more of that, like more that actually take the proportions from the animation and try to turn them into action figures. But these are so over the top that they really did make sense to do it this way in action figure form. So in the basic line, they look very similar, the 5-inch basic line for this show. However, one of the areas that these stand out is that they do have a lot more painted details. So a lot of those details really come through here. I love the colors seen in the belt and the loincloth. The light purple on top of the dark purple all looks really good. It's clean for the most part. I do have a little bit of overspray in the bracers there, and some of the yellow painting and like the kind of the crevices on his neck doesn't look as clean as I would like it to, but I do like the overall sculpt. I think it does a great job of capturing the look of this character. I love that his harness on his armor looks like the ram skull on his Havoc staff. I just think that's a great design element there. And then the skull face looks really good. There's red dots in the eyes. So it looks really, really nice. I mean, if you like the way it looks in the show, I think you'll like the way the action figure portrays that because it turned out pretty good. Now, some wackiness going on here with the articulation and all of that sort of thing. So let's go through it. First of all, it's worth mentioning that the hood that he's wearing is a very rigid plastic, and as far as I can tell, is not meant to be removable. The head is on a ball joint underneath it, but this is severely going to limit your posability because it's hard to get in there and really move it around, and it looks a little weird because then the hood's not moving with it, so that's worth noting. The arms have those big ball joints at the shoulder, so the arms can go outwards, move forwards, backwards, swivel at the bicep, double joints at the arms. These do appear to be the same arms as on the He-Man, though we do have the different wrist here. You've got the exposed skeleton arm on the left, which is a cool signature trait of this version of Skeletor that I really like. The wrists can also move independently and have the hinge joint there. You got just the basic hand over on this side, so the wrist bracer turns, but same type of articulation over here. ball joint in the midsection, so it can roll all the way around, look left and right. You also got a swivel at the waist there. And then you got the ball socket kind of hinges there at the thighs, so the legs can go outwards, forwards, backwards. Swivel at the thigh cut. Nice tight double joints at the knees. Swivel at the boot cut. And then the ankles have a really good joint because you can see hinge moves forwards and backwards, but they also do rock side to side there. Now, one of the things that I ran into with He-Man that's a little bit worse with Skeletor is how top heavy he is. Also, some of that articulation is weird, the way it kind of bounces back and fights with you. I have that a lot on this guy. You can see he's a little bobbly on the top, so trying to pose him sometimes he just kind of bobbles right back to the place I was trying to position him out of. I run into that a lot with his arms too. It's a bit weird on this guy, and because his upper body is a bit bigger with the ram skull armor and the hood, I run into a lot more instances where he's top heavy and then fights with me when I'm trying to pose him. Now, it's worth mentioning he can be posed. It's not too top heavy that he falls over. His legs aren't ultra weak, which is great. The joints are actually pretty good in there. So it's more about finding the balance than it is fighting with, weak joints, because the legs are actually pretty good. We've got a little bit of a bobble again because of the midsection, but you can see the legs themselves nice and tight in the joints. So it's just going to be one of those things where because of the weird proportions from the animated look, you just got to find the right position to keep him standing. Now, those hands are interchangeable, just like we saw with He-Man. So he comes with 2 closed fists and 2 open hands. The open hands are for gripping onto his Havoc Staff accessory. Now, the Havoc Staff looks awesome, but it does pose some issues because it is extremely top heavy. That comes from the ram horns up here, which are super solid plastic and therefore very, very heavy. I mean, this thing is crazy heavy. So you run into a lot of instances where it's going to weigh his arms down, and I'll show you what I mean in just a bit. It also has a real metal chain hanging off of it, which is a really nice touch. Now, on the 5-inch basic figure, the chain is part of the sculpt where it's wrapped around his bone hand. It's not actually attached to the Havoc Staff. But looking at still shots from the animation, I couldn't remember for sure if the chain's in there, but the chain's not on him in the animation. So I don't know exactly what the correct way is. It is worth noting, though, if you don't like this chain, it's removable from the Havoc Staff. In this instance, I just pulled the chain off of the little hook. So that's something that's you got to be careful of. And I'm glad I did that on camera so you could see it, just to be careful of that. I'll just have to bend the chain back. But earlier, I noticed that if you could grip onto the little peg there, that's what I intended to do. The peg pops out that it's attached to. So you can remove it entirely from the Havoc Staff if you want to. And then that can pop right back in place. Just be careful not to pull the chain off like I just did there. So, for instance, if we go ahead and we bring over the open bone hand, you can see it's got a nice indent in the fingers there that holds onto the staff itself. So you can press that firmly in there. Then if you want to, you can wrap the chain, just kind of wrap it around his arm if you want to. But here's what I'm talking about with that really heavy top of the ram skull there. It makes the hand fall over a lot, and it also falls out of the hand as a result. And it's really hard finding a good pose where this isn't a problem, because it just kind of, we'll see, it'll start falling to the side. It's such a heavy, top heavy piece that no matter which hand I put it in, man, did you see the way it just kind of flipped over like that? That's crazy. No matter which hand I put it in, I run into the same problems. See how it's drooping again? So it's a bit unfortunate that it's so heavy. Look at that. It's making his whole arm fall down. The accessory is just too heavy, and it's unfortunately a shorter Havoc Staff, so it's hard to position it where it's on the ground and holding itself upright. So while I love the look of it, I really feel like the execution could have been a little bit better here. All right, guys. It's comparison time. Let's go ahead and stand them alongside the basic 5-inch action figure so you can see the similarities there, but I think you'll also see the improvements in the overall sculpted details and the paint deco. And I want to go ahead and stand them alongside the other Masterverse Skeletor action figures that we've received, just so you can see what he looks like with them. Like the He-Man, he really stands out as something completely different and almost doesn't look like he's part of the line, but he does a great job of matching his animated counterpart. And that's one reason I personally really like this figure. I know it's a bit wonky and the Havoc staff is a bit top heavy, but he looks cool. And personally, I like the Skeletor in this show quite a bit. I know it's going to be up to your personal taste, whether you like this guy or not, but I am happy he's here. And honestly, I would love to see all the villains from this show get the Masterverse treatment because the villains look really cool. I think the chances of that happening are slim to none because I know that I'm in the minority here of liking this design, but nonetheless, I think it would be cool to see it happen. So this figure is starting to ship right now. I got mine through BigBadToyStore.com, where he should be in stock as of the recording of this video. Thank you guys so very much for watching, and until next time.